There is a quiet war happening inside you, and most of the time you don't even realize it exists. Yet it shapes every decision you make, every habit you build, and ultimately the life you end up living. You wake up with intentions, you promise yourself that today will be different, that you will focus, that you will be disciplined, that you will move closer to your goals, but somehow by the end of the day you feel like you lost again, distracted, delayed, and disconnected from the person you wanted to be, and this cycle repeats not because you are weak or incapable, but because your mind is being pulled in different directions by forces you have not yet learned to control. And if you look closely at your life you will notice a pattern, a loop of starting and stopping, of wanting and avoiding, of dreaming and delaying, and this loop continues quietly until one day you realize that time has passed but progress has not, and the reason for that is not a lack of opportunity but a lack of mastery over what happens within you, because everything you do begins first in the mind. And if the mind is scattered, impulsive, or fearful, then your actions will reflect that. And so understanding these inner forces becomes the most important step toward changing your life. And the first of these forces is desire, a force that feels harmless at first because it disguises itself as motivation, as ambition, as something positive, but slowly it turns into craving, into attachment, into a constant need for more comfort, more validation, more stimulation, and you begin to chase things thinking they will complete you, whether it is success, attention, or even simple distractions like your phone, and without noticing it you lose hours of your life scrolling, consuming, escaping, not because you truly want to, but because your mind has been conditioned to seek pleasure at every moment, and the more you feed that desire the stronger it becomes, like a fire that grows with every piece of wood you throw into it, until one day you realize you are no longer in control, you are simply reacting, jumping from one impulse to another without awareness, and this is how people slowly lose direction, not in one big decision but in thousands of small unconscious ones, and what makes desire dangerous is not that it exists, but that it convinces you that satisfaction lies just one step ahead, always just out of reach, so you keep chasing, believing that the next achievement, the next purchase, the next distraction will finally make you feel complete. But when you reach it, the feeling fades quickly and the mind demands more, and so the cycle continues endlessly. But the truth is you are not your desires, you are the one who observes them. And the moment you pause and watch the urge instead of obeying it, you begin to take your power back. You begin to see that urges rise and fall like waves, and if you do not immediately react, they lose their strength. And in that space between impulse and action, you discover freedom, and just as desire pulls you toward what feels good, there is another force that pushes you away from what feels difficult, and that force is aversion. The subtle resistance you feel when something requires effort, when something challenges you, when something forces you to grow. It is the voice that tells you to delay, to avoid, to stay comfortable. And comfort becomes your trap because everything meaningful in life exists outside of it, yet your mind prefers the familiar, even if the familiar keeps you stuck in the same place year after year, and so you avoid the hard conversations, the difficult work, the necessary risks, convincing yourself that you will act later, that you need more time, more preparation, more confidence, but later becomes never, and your potential remains unrealized. And over time this avoidance shapes your identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who hesitates, someone who postpones, someone who does not follow through, and this belief becomes self-reinforcing, making it even harder to break the cycle. But the moment you start moving toward discomfort, even in small ways, you begin to weaken that resistance. Because courage is not the absence of fear, it is the decision to act despite it. And every time you face something you have been avoiding, you reclaim a part of your confidence. And then there is the weight of laziness. Not just physical inactivity but a deeper mental heaviness, a lack of energy, a lack of drive, where even simple tasks feel overwhelming and you wait for motivation to appear, telling yourself that you will begin when you feel ready, but readiness is an illusion, and motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes depending on your mood, your environment, your energy levels, while discipline is a decision, a commitment to act regardless of how you feel, and the moment you learn to move without waiting for the perfect mood, you break free from that stagnation, because action creates momentum, and momentum creates motivation, not the other way around. And the longer you wait, the heavier everything feels, but the moment you take even a small step, you disrupt that inertia, and slowly your energy begins to return, and then you encounter restlessness, the inability to stay still, the constant urge to check something, to switch tasks, to escape silence, because being alone with your thoughts feels uncomfortable. And so you fill every moment with noise, with distraction, with endless input, jumping from one piece of content to another, from one idea to another, never allowing your mind to settle, and this constant stimulation weakens your ability to focus, making it harder to complete meaningful work, and over time your attention becomes fragmented, pulled in multiple directions, leaving you feeling busy but unproductive, occupied but unfulfilled. And the reason for this is simple: your mind has been trained to expect constant novelty, constant reward, and when that reward is not immediately present, it seeks something else, something easier, something more stimulating. But clarity does not come from constant input, it comes from stillness, from giving your mind the space to process, to reflect, to understand. And when you begin to sit in silence, even for a few minutes each day, you start to notice your thoughts more clearly. You start to recognize patterns that were previously invisible, and this awareness allows you to make better decisions, because you are no longer reacting automatically. And as this awareness deepens, you begin to notice not only your thoughts but the emotions beneath them, the subtle tensions, the hidden fears, the unspoken insecurities that quietly influence your behavior. And instead of running from them, you begin to sit with them, to understand them, and in doing so you remove their unconscious control over you, because what you are aware of no longer owns you in the same way. And this is where real transformation begins, not in forcing yourself to change, but in understanding yourself so clearly that change becomes natural. And finally there is doubt, the most dangerous force of all, because it does not shout, it whispers, it plants small seeds of uncertainty in your mind, telling you that you are not ready, that you are not capable, that you will fail. And if you believe it, you stop before you even begin, you hesitate, you overthink, you hold yourself back, not because you lack ability, but because you lack trust in yourself. And doubt often disguises itself as logic, as realism, as caution, but in reality it is fear trying to protect you from discomfort, from failure, from the unknown. And while that protection may feel safe, it also keeps you small, it keeps you from discovering what you are truly capable of. And the only way to overcome doubt is through action, because action provides evidence, evidence that you can learn, that you can adapt, that you can grow. And every time you act despite doubt, you weaken its influence, and every time you avoid action because of it, you strengthen it. And over time this creates a divide between the life you imagine and the life you actually live. And bridging that gap requires not inspiration but repetition, not intensity but consistency. And when you step back and look at all these forces together, desire, aversion, laziness, restlessness, and doubt, you begin to see that the real challenge in life is not external, it is internal. It is mastering your own mind, learning to observe rather than react, to choose rather than follow impulses, to act with intention rather than habit. and this mastery is not about perfection, it is about awareness. About catching yourself in the moment when you are about to give in, when you are about to avoid, when you are about to quit, and choosing differently, again and again, and as you repeat this process something subtle begins to shift. Your reactions slow down, your thoughts become clearer, your decisions become more aligned, and you start to feel a quiet sense of control. That was not there before. Not control over everything around you, but control over how you respond, and that changes everything. Because your life is shaped not by one decision but by repeated patterns of behavior, and when you change those patterns, you change your direction, and when you change your direction consistently, you change your destiny, and this process requires patience. Because real change does not happen instantly, it happens gradually, through small improvements repeated over time, and there will be moments when you fall back into old habits, moments when you lose focus, moments when you feel like giving up. But those moments are part of the process, not a sign of failure, and what matters is not perfection but persistence. The willingness to return, to try again, to continue despite setbacks. And the more you practice this awareness, the more control you gain, until one day you realize that the things that once controlled you no longer have the same power. And in that realization you experience a sense of freedom, a sense of clarity, a sense of direction that was previously missing, and you begin to live more intentionally, making choices that align with who you want to become rather than what your impulses demand. And as you continue on this path you will notice something important. The external world may not change immediately, your circumstances may still be challenging, your environment may still test you, but your response to it will change, and that change in response is what ultimately transforms your life. Because you are no longer reacting blindly, you are acting consciously, and that is where true power lies, not in controlling everything around you, but in mastering how you respond to it. And as this mastery deepens you begin to experience a different relationship with time itself. You stop rushing, you stop constantly seeking the next moment, and you begin to fully engage with the present. Because you realize that your life is not happening in the future, it is happening now, in the choices you make moment by moment. And when those moments are guided by awareness, they begin to compound into something meaningful, something intentional, something real, and one day you will look back and realize that the greatest battle you ever faced was not against the world, but within yourself. And the moment you chose to face that battle with awareness, with discipline, with courage, was the moment your life truly began to change, because your mind can either be your greatest limitation or your most powerful tool, and the difference depends on whether you allow it to control you or you learn to master it, and that choice, the most important choice you will ever make, is available to you right now, in this very moment. And if you choose awareness, if you choose discipline, if you choose growth over comfort again and again, then slowly but surely you will become the person you once only imagined, not through sudden transformation, but through consistent, deliberate effort. Through quiet decisions no one else sees, through moments of resistance where you choose the harder path, through discipline when motivation fades, through action when doubt speaks, and that is the path of self-mastery, a path that is not easy, but one that is worth every step, because at the end of it you do not just achieve success, you achieve control over your own life, clarity over your direction, and peace within your mind, and there is nothing more powerful than that.